Good morning, friends and enemies. In today's video, we are going over 5 running backs that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole in 2025 fantasy football based on where they're getting drafted right now. We did the wide receiver version last week, so if you want to check that out, that will be in the notes of this video. And I apologize for the lack of content over the last week. I had to head down to Florida. I had some personal family issues I was dealing with. You guys are acting like you've wanted to hear me talk about a bunch of dudes that you're going to disagree with me on anyways. Let's get to the first of which, Breece Hall. New York Jets starting ? Running back. So if you can tell by the gist of many of my videos so far, the Jets are just a team I am trying to avoid. And I think that speaks to the larger picture or the larger strategy in fantasy football that tends to do you pretty well. And that is to avoid teams that are not projected to be good teams. And I think that is the case for the New York Jets in 2025. You can take my word for it. I will back it up with as many stats and numbers as humanly possible. They do have a new staff, new coaching scheme coming in and renovating the place, right? You got Aaron Glenn coming in from Detroit. He is a defensive-minded head coach. Breece Hall and his upside, in my opinion, lies in the pass catching ability. He's a very good pass catcher, but he needs the volume in order for that to translate into fantasy production. I have a very hard time seeing a world where that is the case with Justin Fields under center. And you can make the case like, oh, Justin Fields is a mobile quarterback, opens up more lanes for the running back, a good offensive line, all that kind of stuff. Sure, but you have Aaron Rodgers, who is borderline paralyzed from the waist down last year. Like, you couldn't have had a better run out for a pass-catching running back, a team that was losing a lot of games, a quarterback that does not scramble whatsoever and checks down to the running backs at a pretty significant rate. So Breece Hall, in my opinion, kind of like capped out what we could have expected in the current regime. And now we have Justin Fields where it's like, cool, maybe the yards per carry boosts up by like 0.2, 0.3. Not really something that moves the needle for me in fantasy. So I just don't see a mobile quarterback like Fields using running backs and checking down to running backs very often. It's just not what we historically see. They tend to be athletic and use that athleticism to run when they're under pressure rather than looking for the check down. So overall, we have Aaron Glenn coming in. I think it's just going to be a very, very run-heavy New York Jets offense. And I'm a little bit worried about the guys behind Breece Hall getting involved enough to the point where they're taking valuable touches. Like Aaron Glenn came in and immediately talked about how he wanted to get all 3 running backs involved. The other 2 that I'm referencing, obviously, are the 2 rookies from last year, Braylon Allen, the absolute dump truck, and Isaiah Davis, a really special pass-catching back. Some tweets that hopefully put this into perspective. Breece Hall has 9 carries inside the 5-yard line over the last 2 seasons combined. Just 9. Braylon Allen seems to be a reason for concern that this type of trend will continue, right? He's a huge back that tends to carry defenders on his way. He converted a first down or a touchdown on 78% of runs needing less than 3 yards, whereas Breece Hall was down at 46%. Now, not only are we worried about Braylon Allen taking some of those goal line carries, but if you want to talk about how Justin Fields opens lanes for Breece Hall, Justin Fields is wildly active on the goal line. Over the last 3 years, in the games that Justin Fields has started at quarterback, he has scored a rushing touchdown in 45% of them. The Jets had 8 rushing touchdowns all of last year, which is 47% of their games. I mean, you give 45% of those to Justin Fields, you're leaving like 4 rushing touchdowns for the rest of the field. I know it's very like black and white on paper. That's not how the world works. But like when you start to put practical projections behind what we can expect here, it's hard to come to a consensus of Breece Hall scoring a lot of touchdowns. And again, like it's going to be a very slow offense. His best attribute is pass catching. And when you have a run-first offense with a mobile quarterback, you're not going to see a ton of those checkdowns. They have the 4th highest odds to have the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL draft. Their win total as a team is 5.5. I just think the numbers point to, even if Breece Hall is like the starter for the majority of the year and is the guy who leads the backfield in touches, which should be projected, this just feels way more like a high floor year from Breece Hall. And at RB like 13 in drafts, I don't think I'm trying to draft a dude on a bad team with a high floor. Someone else can go draft Breece Hall. And sticking to the point of talented running backs on bad teams that I think point more to a floor play is rookie 2nd-round pick Quinshon Judkins out there in Cleveland. Currently going off the board as the RB24. So you're talking about your RB2 in fantasy being Quinshon Judkins. As a player, like Judkins is very cool. He's exciting, and I'm excited to follow what he does at the NFL level and see what he eventually becomes, but extremely difficult to see him paying back this type of value statistically. He has the draft capital, and I think that's probably about all he has going for him heading into 2025 because the situation is really tough. And when you start to compare him to other rookies per se, RJ Harvey is RB20, Trayvon Henderson is 21, Judkins is 24, Caleb Johnson is 25. When you start to put numbers behind it, Judkins is down there, low man on the totem pole, projected for 650.5 rushing yards, 4.5 rushing touchdowns. So that's the lowest rushing yardage total among the guys. That is tied for the lowest rushing touchdown total among the rookies. There is no line for RJ Harvey. And that obviously does not take into effect any of the receiving numbers, but I would not project Judkins to be particularly high on that list relative to the other ones. And I think similar to the Jets, like I think the Browns will probably be worse on offense. They could be genuinely tragic, right? Their over-under for wins per BetMGM is 4.5. And running backs on those types of teams, you typically want to stay away from unless you are really confident in your projection of them having a very high pass catching type role. Whereas like if you want to make the argument for Breece Hall, I get it. He's been there, he's done that, he's a talented back, but you can't do that for Judkins. That was not his role in college. That does not seem to be his role at the NFL level. I look at what's around Judkins as well in Cleveland. Like they drafted Dylan Sampson in the 4th round, 2 rounds later. I think he's an extremely talented back that could take pass catching work. He's very, very explosive. He could play on 2 and 4 minute drills. Jerome Ford is still there. Last year, the Browns as an offensive line unit, 30th per PFF in run blocking grade. And they're objectively, any ranking system that you look at, a bottom 5 unit entering 2025. Jedrick Wills is sitting out all of 2025 to recover from his knee injury. I also think you could look at Judkins' stats at the college level and paint a picture where he's just not as good as the draft capital that he got. He's got the size, he's got the explosiveness, like he could be an extremely, extremely talented back at the next level. But I think when you compare him to the other backs there, like his numbers fall very, very, very short. So I think you have to bake in a percentage of the risk of him just not being as good of a running back as the draft capital says. I will say the only way I could see Judkins really getting home here, the only way I could see Judkins paying back this value and this fade going sideways is if Joe Flacco is under center for 12 to 17 games this year. He is the full-time starter, basically. He's an absolute check down merchant. It doesn't matter what down it is, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Like he is looking at the running back first and foremost, and that could lead to Judkins catching 50 passes just because he's out there on the field. So that could be a hell of a backfire on my case there. But who knows with the quarterback situation? Flacco likely wins it, but I think we're going to get starts out of Kenny Pickett. I think we'll get a start or 4 out of Shador or Dylan Gabriel or something. It's going to be messy in the quarterback room for Cleveland, no doubt about it. So regardless of where your heart lies with Quinshon Judkins, I think if you're going to ignore all the red flags, that's a mistake. And I think your brain should supersede any way that you feel about the Ohio State running back. While we are on the topic of Ohio State running backs, his running mate, Trayvon Henderson, got drafted to the New England Patriots. He is not a fade for me, though his price is starting to get up there for a dude who's likely going to work in a committee out there in New England. His committee mate, Rhamondre Stevenson. This is, relatively obvious of a fade. His price is going to continue to move down and needs to continue to move down if you want to have any draft capital invested into Rhamondre Stevenson. You have the new staff coming in. Josh McDaniels is OC. Mike Vrabel is the head coach. And the very first thing they did was draft an offensive lineman and then draft Trayvon Henderson in the 2nd round. When you look on Trayvon Henderson, I mean, he's a great pass catcher. He's very explosive, great pass blocker, and holds on to the ball. So pretty much the opposite of Rhamondre Stevenson, who got put in the doghouse multiple times last year. He's not a particularly strong pass blocker, but he fumbled a running back league leading 7 times last year. Trayvon Henderson just does not put the ball on the ground. And when we look at Rhamondre Stevenson last year, like he's 27 years old, so he's definitely not like out of his prime, but he's getting up there, and his efficiency numbers pretty much tanked last year, ranked outside of the top 45 running backs in yards per touch, true yards per carry, explosive rating. And I get it. Obviously, with the supporting cast that they had there in New England, it's very hard to be really good in isolation. But I just think this is one where like Rhamondre might be the touch leader out of the gate, and for the first like 4 to 6 weeks you might feel kind of cool about it, but by week 7, week 8, Trayvon Henderson is the guy that we're ranking inside the top 24, and Stevenson is a really, really risky flex play, and I don't want to waste a 7th, 8th, even 9th round pick on a dude like Rhamondre Stevenson when I have so little confidence that he's going to be a playmaker for you towards the end of the year. The 4th running back on this list, sure to trigger the most people in the comment section and the highest likelihood of making me look like a fucking dickhead after the season is done, is RJ Harvey in Denver. And listen, I'm kind of pissed that I'm making this video now. Hear me out. I'm making the video now. As I said, I was in Florida for personal family issues prior to this, and I wrote most of the script, or I did most of my research for this video 2 weeks ago. So everything about RJ Harvey in my notes was written prior to the J.K. Dobbins signing. So I actually like him more after the J.K. Dobbins signing because you can get him at a cheaper price. But prior to the Dobbins signing, he was the RB 18 in drafts. Like, I want you to look at my 3 most recent draft boards on Underdog Fantasy. He was the RB 16 here ahead of Jalen Hurts, the RB 18 here, and the RB 18 here. So legitimately, the RB 18 or higher, those were the prices you had to pay. And I get it. You cannot find a negative sentiment about RJ Harvey on Twitter anywhere. No matter how hard you look, no matter how deep of a crevice you find on Twitter, there is no negative RJ Harvey. And I get it. He's set up with the absolute nut hand as a rookie. Second round draft capital. Coach notoriously known for checking down to running backs. Very little competition. Good offense. Good quarterback. Very good offensive line. All that being said, I'm not taking him over James Conner, over Caleb Johnson, Aaron Jones, Travion Henderson. Like, it is just not happening for me. And I get you could do whatever you want in full PPR leagues. You can make a better case for it. Here's film breakdown that I used for RJ Harvey. Like, the reason that I don't particularly like him, I think his vision is kind of all over the place. A lot of that can be quelled with a very good offensive line and a very good offense, which is what he has in Denver. I still have my own personal, I don't want to say vendetta because I got nothing personal against RJ Harvey, but it's a little bit personal. He is 24 years old, and here's a tweet from Ron. 23-plus-year-old running backs drafted in round 2 since 2007. Carlos Hyde, Toby Gerhart, Kenny Irons, Montario Hardesty, Daniel Thomas, Brian Leonard, and RJ Harvey. So Carlos Hyde, a hit. Obviously, the rest of them fell flat. RJ Harvey is incredibly explosive, like very fast, and will make a lot of big plays. I don't love his vision, and I don't think he's particularly elusive. When you look at his 20.7% broken tackle plus missed tackles forced per attempt rate, it's not very high. If anything, it's like below average in the class. His pass blocking grade was the single worst in the class that we charted among running backs that we looked at. He is just 205 pounds. And this is all to say, like, I'm just not in on him as a top 18, top 20 guy. Probably not a top 24 guy for me either. Again, I can make the argument he's the RB25, RB26 in full PPR because of the involvement that he'll have in the passing game. But with J.K. Dobbins there now, like, I don't know if RJ Harvey's going to be used on the goal line at all. Bo Nix is a guy who rushes in scores. Like, we just made some of the points for Justin Fields. Bo Nix is a scrambler, so that takes away some of the goal line work there. Aldrick Esime might be just an absolute cone there, but he might be used on the goal line just simply because of his size. So unless it's in a full PPR league, I have a hard time getting behind Mr. Harvey here. And the fifth and final player on this list for me, and the most expensive player on the list, is Christian McCaffrey. He has now moved up to the RB4 in best ball paid drafts. We're talking about Underdog Fantasy, the RB4, the 8th overall player off the board. I get it. A lot of those drafts that they're doing are high-stake tournament drafts where you need to shoot for high upside and high outcome. That is what maybe Christian McCaffrey can bring to you. At that price, just give me a younger, more sure thing at wide receiver or running back. Like, you can get Genty after him. You could definitely get Derrick Henry after him. You can get these guys that I feel more confident in than I do with Christian McCaffrey. Like, McCaffrey last year, obviously just a year from hell. Didn't play at all for you, and then he finally got back. Wasn't good, then got injured again. And you're looking at an older running back who has dealt with so many serious lower leg injuries up to this point. And the practice reports that you're going to find out of San Francisco are all over the place. You have guys that will, like, bend over backwards. They will break their back to tell you how explosive Christian McCaffrey looks in shorts. And then you have guys like Grant Cohen, who is like, say what you want about him. He is completely out on Christian McCaffrey, says he does not look like the same player, does not have the same explosiveness. Again, very early in the summer. And as we progress into the summer, if he has a completely clean bill of health and we have no, minor ankle tweaks or hamstring pulls or calf strains or tendonitis popping up, whatever the case may be, the double Achilles cheeked up, then I will move him slightly up my draft boards. But right now, there is no chance I'm using a top 8 pick on Christian McCaffrey when there are so many good, younger, exciting, explosive, high upside players on the board for you to pick. I just don't want to go down that road. If he hits and he's the Christian McCaffrey of 2022, 2023, whatever, then sure, I absolutely missed out on him. But at that price, like, I don't want to take that risk when you have guys that are probably going to be able to do 85% of what Christian McCaffrey can do when they're the 8th overall pick, whether it's, Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas Jr. or Derrick Henry, who is projected to lead the league in rushing touchdowns. Like, that kind of thing is where I don't think that even if you fade him, you're making a league losing type of pick. So I'm out on Christian McCaffrey, man. So those are 5 running backs that I have not found myself clicking the draft button on pretty much at all so far through drafts. Again, I ain't touching the price with a 10-foot pole. If they continue to move down and down and down further in the ADPs, I'm open-minded over here, all right? The big brain can be changed. It can be malleable. But if you want every player that I plan to fade, if you want all of our top stay-away players for the season, you're going to be able to get that in the draft guide. That will go live pre-order July 1st. But if you want to be notified at the cheapest price, the very, very cheapest price you can get it is an extremely discounted price relative to previous years. Just put your email on the email list down below. Free to just drop that in there, and I will notify you when that deal goes live in a couple weeks. So there you have it. The 5 running backs that I hate that I know all you guys love, and I'm going to be wrong about that. No doubt about it. Love you. I'll see you next week. Now that we are back home for good, content will be pumped and ramped back up. Smoochies.